Tim is going to give a speech, and the title of the speech is Winners Never Quit and Quitters Never Win. Sergeant Joseph.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Really good, really good. Yes, yes. Stupendous.
You gotta be pumped up today. It's
Yes.
Super Saturday, and you're here with Queen City Toastmasters, and you get to hear me speak.
Super tasty.
A lot of you don't know that coming up, one of my greatest hobbies was playing drums. I grew up playing drums in the church. I started at about 8 years old. And I played all the way until I left and went to the Marine Corps after I graduated high school. So I got to be pretty stupendous with my talent of playing drums. I was good. I played all over the place. And I played in a couple of bands. And at that time, when I went to the Marine Corps, I didn't really have, I donated my drums to the church. And when I went into the Marine Corps, I got engulfed in being a Marine and, you know, traveling the world and defending our democracy. And about 20 years later, I decided, you know what, I'm going to pick my drums back up. I was going through a divorce. I was a drill sergeant down in Fort Jackson, and I had a lot of stress going on. And drums, I'm going to tell you something, it's a phenomenal stress release. And so that's what I use my drumming as, a stress release. And so I started to pick it back up, and I found that I actually lost my talent. One of the things, you know, we're all blessed with talents. All of us. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do. Everybody here has a special talent, and they have a gift. And if you don't use it, it just goes away. Or somebody else picks it up. I call that with opportunity. Opportunities don't go away. They just move on to the next person. Okay? So when I started back with the drums, you know, it was hard. I had to get back on the saddle again, and I fell off a little bit. And I started to, one day at church, it was sort of like, it was meant for me to show up that day. I wasn't going to go. And somebody, the drummer didn't show up. And so I was forced, they were sitting there and they had a band and no drummer. And, you know, I said, you know what, I'm going to get up there and play. And I found out that I was a little rusty, but I could still, you know, hold the beat. So, make a long story short, I get to Afghanistan and I was nervous about going. And I was like, you know, what's it going to be like when I get over there? Am I going to be fighting every day? Is there going to be, you know, what? I didn't know what to expect. But one cool thing, when I showed up on post, I went to the chapel, because everybody finds religion over in Afghanistan. And I was like, wow, a drum set. And I used to go into the chapel, and I would play drums. And that was my stress release over there. And I got to be a part of the praise band over there. And when I got there, and I started, you know, it was like, hey, we got this band, and, you know, we get together and we play on Sunday. And I was like all excited and pumped. And when I showed up, it wasn't what I expected. It was just like 5 or 6 people singing, and it was me on the drums. The guitar player had quit. They didn't have an organist or a piano player, and so it was sort of not what I really wanted. But I played for a couple of months, and I finally got bored with it, and I quit. And that's what a lot of us do with a lot of things. We quit. And after about 2 more months, we were getting prepared to rotate back here. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to church and start playing those drums. Now, I used to play the drums every day, but I just wasn't playing for church. I would go in there and put in some, you know, my type of music. Some rock, some old school R&B, or some funk, or what have you. I know it's a chapel, but it was just a tent. And I would go in there and I'd pump music through the speakers and just play. Well, when I decided that I was going to go back and play drums for the praise team, lo and behold, they didn't need me. There was a drummer. There was a piano player. There was a whole 20 people singing in the choir. And I missed out. And I sat there and I was like, good Lord, I'm the best drummer on this spot. This guy is even better than me. But because I quit, I missed out. And so I want to ask you, and well, first of all, I knew right then when I was sitting in church that Sunday that that was a speech that I was going to be giving. I didn't know it was going to be Tuesday night here at Queen City Toastmasters, but I knew I needed to share that story. Winners never quit, and quitters never win. Some horror stories. Last week we were talking about horror stories, okay? Some of the horror stories, think about this. Microsoft. Bill Gates, richest man, or he goes back and forth being the first or second richest man. It doesn't matter. He's really rich. $40 billion. He's rich, okay? When he started Microsoft back in 1975, there was 11 people. He's the last man standing. Out of those 11 people, there's only 2 billionaires, okay? Everybody else, a few of them, they're millionaires and went on to different things. But think about this. Don't you think that they could look back now and say, wow, you know, if they knew then what they know now, would they have quit? How many people know Pete Best? I knew you did, don't you? He's known as the fifth Beatle. He quit the band in 1962. The Beatles showed up on the Ed Sullivan Show in 1964. Don't you think, with the Beatles being worth over $1 billion, with their merchandise and the records that they've sold, don't you think Pete Best sort of, his stomach turned upside down because he quit too early? How many times have you done that? How many times have you gone out and you've been a part of something and things weren't right, maybe the people weren't right, and you said, you know what, I'm done with this. And then come back 3 years later and find out that they're doing great things over here. They've made this much money. They've got this type of relationship. Their kids are so great. Imagine if your kid failed kindergarten. Do you just throw up your arms and say, hey, I quit. He's a dummy. What do you do? You try to move him on. So my job tonight, hopefully, I was able to convince you that if you want to win, and every one of you are winners, you can't quit, because there's so many horror stories out there that's letting you know